You look at the NICE guidelines, the British guidelines for like the medical guidelines that are suggested what to base your treatment plan on. And the HSE in Ireland uses that quite a bit as well. They've been updated, I think, 1 or 2 years ago about endometriosis. They've still been quite out of date on endometriosis up until then, but they're getting a little bit better now. But even the NICE guidelines now acknowledge that an endo patient should have access not just to an endometriosis specialist and the multidisciplinary team, but they also should have access to a GP who understands their pain, who can manage day-to-day issues, a nutritionist, pelvic health physiotherapist, and psychotherapy or counseling. And none of that is happening. The waiting lists are huge. And even if your GP or your consultant thinks of referring you, you'll be waiting forever. And to be honest, most GPs and consultants do not refer you. Either they are not aware or they are aware of the waiting lists. So you'll be waiting forever. And it's also quite tricky then to find a nutritionist, a pelvic health physio, a counselor who also has a bit of experience in that area, so they can individualize the treatment a little bit more to you, so you're not just getting more generic advice. So that is tricky. So yes, I totally agree. There's a huge lack, whether it's in the Republic or in Northern Ireland, in terms of aftercare. And a lot of patients are totally left on their own. There is a couple of people who go privately and pay for it privately, but you have to be able to afford that as well. Even if you do have private health insurance, if you have any pre-existing conditions that might be excluded from your cover, you still pay for all that yourself. And even if you do have the private cover, the extra chunk you pay on top of that can quite add up. So again, I was quite lucky to have physios who are specialized in pelvic, like have friends who are physios who are specialized in pelvic health, who are quite knowledgeable about endometriosis, that I could go and get a checkup after my surgery. I again knew who to go for nutritional advice after the surgery to get a bit more back into healthy eating, because you tend to restrict your food so much because of all the pain, because all the gastroenterologists tell you to avoid this, to avoid that. Loads of foods aren't an issue once the inflammation is being taken out, when the lesions are cut out. I went to see a counselor by myself, just to help me deal with the biggest issue for me. Wasn't dealing with the pain. I was able to kind of work through that. My big issue was working through the mistrust in consultants, the gaslighting, the dismissal, that feeling of being totally left on my own devices. Because I do work in healthcare, and I just wanted someone to touch base with, to be like, this was one experience. I needed to set my baseline again for working in the healthcare system, because just because one area of healthcare isn't up to date and doesn't work the way it should be working, doesn't mean all healthcare is bad. That's a really important thing to know. So I found it really good to get some support that way. But that was for me specifically working as a physio in the healthcare system. But I do think it can be really, really helpful to talk to someone about what you've been through, pain-wise, how your life has changed, how everything has changed, and a lot of people might not understand how severe the symptoms were that you went through. It's huge.